Fall has officially arrived and it has brought some chilly evenings and mornings. And with that, I have only been thinking about soup. Fall has brought in soup season, and this is most definitely my favorite. Soup is so beneficial, full of nutrients, and one of the absolutely most budget-friendly thing that you can make. So this week I am taking some bones that had been sitting in my freezer for a while, and I am making some bone broth. These are beef bones that I'm using, and to that I am adding an onion as well as some kale stems that I had in the freezer waiting for me to make broth. I put this in the slow cooker on low for 24 hours with filtered water. After that, I did put it in the refrigerator so the fat rose to the top and solidified. I am most definitely not getting rid of that because it is so beneficial. I can render it down and use it to grease my pans and things like that. So I'm just separating out the fat so I can render it down later. But now I get to save this beautiful bone broth. I like to use this to make rice because it just gives such an amazing flavor to the rice, or I can just use it in a soup as well. So many of the recipes I use always call for a cup or two of broth, so having homemade bone broth on hand is so beneficial to me and a huge time saver. Broth is one of those things that can be made so cheaply because it's made with scrap material. It's bones that would get thrown out anyways, and you're able to make a nutritious base to a soup or stew or to rice, and it adds a lot more flavor and nutrients to it. So being able to make your own, where the store-bought is like $5 to buy, so you're saving quite a bit by being able to make your own broth. It is going to be Thanksgiving here in Canada this weekend, and this is a fabulous time to go pick up on some sales. If you have room in your freezer, I also pick up multiple turkeys because they're on the best sale they're going to be right now. And I will break down that turkey and freeze bits of it so that I can have turkey sandwiches or turkey and gravy or turkey soup. And that's turkey that will last our family for 6 months to a year. So I always go and purchase multiple turkeys. But today I had something else in mind. The cranberries are on sale, so I went and stocked up on a bunch of cranberries so I can make cranberry juice. I love to have homemade juice because I know that it is 100% natural. I've been able to sweeten it with honey, and I'm not having any colorants or natural flavors added to this juice. And then I can go ahead and make gummies and such for my kids with this. So I filled both of my pots with my cranberries, and then I filled almost to the top with some filtered water. And then I let them simmer for about an hour, both with about a cup of honey. And then I just drained out the cranberries so the juice drains into a pot. Now, I am not about to be wasting these cranberries either, so I absolutely am not going to make this juice and then throw out this cranberry pulp. I will be able to bake with this or to throw it in a cranberry sauce still. So I will be saving all of these cranberries. More than likely, I will bake with them. Now that the juice has been completely strained out from the berries, I'm going to go ahead and add it to my clean quart jars. I am going to fill these quart jars up to a 1/4 inch headspace. If you are new here today, I want to say welcome. I am so glad you are joining us here today. On my channel, I focus a lot on frugal living, budget cooking, and urban homesteading. So I definitely do a lot of canning here. If that's something that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and follow along to learn how you can save lots of money at home. Once I have my quart jars filled to a 1/4 inch headspace, I'm going to go ahead and wipe the rims. I don't want any sugary residue on these rims, and this way I can also check all of my rims to make sure that there are no impurities, there's no chips or cracks or anything like that that might impede my lid sealing. Once that's done, I'm going to get my lids on and my rings on fingertip tight, and I am going to put them in my water bath canner, bring my water bath canner to a rolling boil, and time that for 15 minutes. Then I just turn my oven off. I let the juice sit in there for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I can bring this out. And it has given me 5 beautiful quarts of cranberry juice. Next up, I was moving on to baking and realized I was fully out of baking powder. I like to make my own baking powder because I want mine aluminum free, and I can save a lot of money by just making this at home myself instead of purchasing aluminum free baking powder from the store. To make this, I just take 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 1/4 cup of baking soda, and 1/2 cup of cream of tartar. And then I go ahead and mix that all together, and that creates my baking powder. It doesn't have to be 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup, and 1/2 cup. What the actual recipe is 1 part baking soda, 1 part cornstarch, and 1/2 cup, and 2 parts of cream of tartar. So if you add that all together, you can do whatever measurements you like for baking powder that will last you as long as you like. If you have children, you know that snacks are essential. They are go, go, go. So they always have hungry bellies and are reaching for some sort of food. So I love to have some homemade baking around so that we have healthy options for them to grab when they are feeling a little snacky in the afternoon. And because it is fall out, my kids have gone apple picking recently, so we have some apples to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and make some apple muffins today. For this, I am getting my peeler and corer out so that I can quickly work with this apple. It is a gigantic red delicious apple that my kids picked at the apple orchard. And I love this peeler, but it does sometimes give me issues, and I know that it prefers one end of the apple over the other. So at this point, I'm like, oh, I think that it enjoys the other end, so I have to switch it over because you can see that I only peeled most of the apple, but it leaves a part there. But it still decided to be finicky with me, but that's fine. I just had to deal with a little bit of the peel, and that just means I'm peeling it or leaving it on there. So if you have one of these, this is perfect. If not, go ahead and just manually peel your apple, and then you're going to dice it up into small bite-sized bits. This recipe calls for 2 cups of diced apples. Now I have a gigantic apple here with me today, so this full apple makes 2 cups. I really do enjoy making muffins and being to experiment with new recipes and new things in the muffins. They are one of my favorite things to make. What is one of your favorite things to bake in the kitchen? Let me know in the comments. So after my apple is all diced up, I am going to go ahead and put this in a separate bowl, and I'm going to add some cinnamon and a little bit of my flour mixture. Now in a separate bowl, I had also added 2 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now, if you're wanting any of these recipes, don't worry. I will make sure that I have them in the description box for you. I'm supposed to be putting a little bit of flour on these apples, so I'm just using a little bit of my flour mixture because they're all going to be mixed in together anyways. Now, in a separate bowl, I am adding 1/2 cup of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 2 large eggs, and 1/2 cup of milk. And I'm going to go ahead and just cream this all together. While I'm mixing this together, I have also got my oven preheating at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I find it so financially beneficial to be able to do the majority, if not all, of my baking at home. The store-bought muffins would cost a lot more, and they would have a lot of extra ingredients in them and not be very fresh. Where when I can make this at home, it is made with just simple ingredients, and it is the freshest that it could possibly be. So this way I am feeding my family the healthiest food that I possibly can while also saving money. Say if you had bought a fruit muffin from your local coffee shop, that would probably be about $2.50. At least it is where I am. And I can make 12 muffins for that amount. So it just makes sense to be able to make this at home. Like I've said before, the second you start cutting out the middleman is where you really start to save money. So if you're cutting out the people who are making those muffins for you and you're doing it yourself, that's when you're going to start making money. So if anywhere that you see where you can do something for yourself instead of outsourcing that to somebody or something else, then that is a great way to save a little extra money. Now that I have my wet and dry ingredients mixed together, I go ahead and fold in all of my apples. Once they are completely folded into the batter, I'm going to go ahead and fill my muffin tins. This recipe makes 12 nice big muffins. If you are still here, thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for an easy way to help support my channel, make sure that you like this video and you can also comment. And now there's something new called hyping a video. So if you can look for that hype video and hit that button, that's a great way to help out, and I very much appreciate you. Once my muffin tins are full, I'm going to go ahead and pop that into the oven for 1/2 hour, 30 minutes. I go ahead and test mine just to make sure that they're done, but they came out beautifully with nice crispy edges. They were so delicious. My new favorite muffins for sure. I am trying hard to move to lower toxic things in my house to keep things as healthy as possible, and dish soap is one of those things that I am switching up. Now, instead of going out and buying a low-tox dish soap, which can be quite expensive, I decided to make mine at home. I started off getting 1.5 cups of water boiling on the stove. I added 1 tablespoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon washing soda, 1/4 cup shredded castile soap. So I had 1 bar that I shredded in the cheese grater, and I added that to the boiling water, and I just kept that simmering until that soap had completely dissolved, and it made a really lovely dish soap. And yes, it does tackle grease decently because I did add that whole bar. It works really well and it is completely non-toxic. So something that I considered a win for me this week. Now, I have an overabundance of canned plums that I did a couple years ago, and they happen to be quite sour, and anytime I use them in anything like a plum pie or baking, they just make that ingredient quite sour. I have done a plum barbecue sauce, and that worked really well, so I decided to make my own plum sauce with some of these plums and use them up so they do not go to waste. So I started off getting 3 pints of these plums in my pot. I added 4 cups of sugar, a teaspoon of ginger, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of cloves to this. And I just went ahead and simmered that on my stove for 1 hour and 15 minutes. After that, I got my immersion blender out and I just blended everything until it was nice and smooth. And this turned these plums into something amazing. This plum sauce was almost caramelized. It was very sweet, and it is going to be really nice to be dipping some chicken into this. And I know that this plum sauce has no colorants, no preservatives, none of that in here. And it was so simple to make. If you are looking for more frugal recipes to help you save money at home, make sure you check out the playlist that I have linked here. I have a ton of ideas for you. On this playlist, I have a lot of baking as well as a ton of budget cooking that your family will love. I also do a lot of pantry staples that can help you save a lot of money. So if you're wanting to save money at home, make sure you are checking out that playlist right after this video. Thank you all so much for joining me here today, and I'll see you all next time.